What's up, fake book? If you're watching on YouTube, if you're not watching on YouTube, go to the Roughneck to Real Estate YouTube right now and jump on there, subscribe, turn on notifications. But otherwise, I've got Logan Bentley Fullmer here. Great guy, does hundreds of deals per year. I didn't realize Logan was as big as he was until we were at his office, and he said, guess how many deals we did? And it was like 237, if I remember right, or some crazy number like that. And I was like,
yeah.
That's an insane amount of volume for somebody that I felt like, just owned everything cash and owned a rental portfolio and did some tough back end work on the title issues and stuff like that. Doing 230 of those seems insane to me. But he runs an office out of San Antonio. I'm just betting that now he's doing more than 230 a year. We're going to dive into some things. We've been chopping it up off camera for a little while here. We'll dive back into some of those topics. But anyways, Logan, tell the people who you are, where they can find you.
Hey, Corey, it's always a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. Every time I get a message from you in my inbox, my eyes light up. It's exciting. But I'm excited to be here, dude. I always enjoy talking with you. It's a fun time. So been in real estate for about 10 years. Worked in the oil field before then. Went to college at Southwest before then. The real estate business, I've been here in San Antonio. Started doing real estate here for quite a while, and then I kind of branched out, taking on other cities that were close and realized they were, the same as the rest of the cities in Texas. So at this point, Texas, kind of the boundaries, started doing small vacant lots and little houses, working my way into the rental portfolio and started to kind of grow that, did some notes, started doing some commercial stuff, ranch land. And, now it's a lot of office, a lot of warehouse, do a lot more ranch flips these days. We built a wholesaling business last summer that worked out great. So at this point, I'm trying to grow these different businesses, kind of stabilize them, or not stabilize them, but maybe perfect them now.
And get more efficient is the word the books use. Efficiency. Do you read any books?
I go through phases, man. Early on, I read everything, and I was trying to learn work-life balance and how much to read and all this shit because everybody said to do it. And I found I was forcing myself to do stuff I didn't like to do. So, I don't do it that much anymore. You'll find me reading a legal paper that an attorney wrote for a continuing education class. It's 150 pages. I'll burn through that in a night or 2 nights. But you can't get me to pick up one of these traction books or something like that. I can't make it through that. So
I read a book or listened to a book. I don't read, but I listened to a book called Clockwork. I would tell you that I would absolutely pick that book up if I was you. It kind of goes into what we were talking about off camera with the employees and the hiring. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily like the author. You'll see why once you're listening to it. But the book itself, fabulous. Really helps out with scaling and kind of delegating tasks. Gives you good metrics and ways to measure that. For instance, I stumbled across this accidentally. I'm on the road a lot, but I want like key metrics that tell me exactly what our effort is, right? Because if I know I send out 20,000 mailers, right, that should result in 20 contracts. That's just it. Out of those 20 contracts, maybe 15 of those are going to close. You know what I mean? That's my metrics. I send out 20,000 mailers, but if it doesn't spit out 20 contracts at the back end, there's all these little key pieces in between there that didn't get taken care of, right?
Yep.
And since I know that, I can track it. So I hired a girl. We pay her $18 an hour. She said right over there, and she fills out this spreadsheet for me, and I can look at that spreadsheet in one glance, look at my metrics, and know, okay, we're not making the number of callbacks we need to make. Like we have an app that everybody calls off of. She manually counts how many calls they made. And if they're not making 60 calls a day, then the whole system breaks down right there. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Earlier you were saying that I'm probably doing more transactions now. As we're thinking through this, our transaction count has come up a little bit. We're probably around 300 transactions annually last year and this year. But the difference is our revenue from last year to the prior year doubled, but our transactions didn't double. And then this year, I'm expecting if we continue at the same rate, we're going to double again this year. And we're not at small numbers like the beginning of this whole business 10 years ago. So these are big steps. And a transaction volume isn't growing, but we're doing bigger deals. We feel comfortable with them. We've got the right management. We got the right people in place. And I'll be honest with you, man, 8 years ago, it was harder for me than it is now. I'm working Monday through Friday. I ain't working weekends, haven't in a year.
Same.
I mean, my brain's still working on the weekend, but I ain't in the office, dude. And I get to spend more time with my family. And we've just built something that really, really works. So we really are tuning this ship up.
Let's dive into that. Have you hired more people in the last year? Like, so when your transaction volume was lower and your revenue was lower, have you hired since then? In other words, did you add 10 more people to your staff or more VAs, or how did you buy that time back?
I got 4 VAs that are only doing calling. I'll tell you what they do in a minute. And they're real basic too. I got 4 VAs, and then I hired 9 more people.
9 more people. The 9 people that you hired, some of them are going to be acquisitions, some of them are going to be dispositions, and some of them are going to be management. What's that breakdown look like?
7 of those 9 are all in the wholesaling company. The other 2 are in the parent company, kind of a management company that supports I think you're familiar with my business model. We've talked about it before. I've got 4 business partners, and they all own separate real estate businesses. And my office supports them with accounting, finance, legal. And in their companies, they'll hire another person or get some help. One of those companies specifically started to grow a lot last year, and that's where we decided to develop a wholesale company. So I added 2 as admin and support in, the family office, the parent office, and then the wholesaling companies where all that labor came from. So how those wholesaling deals have affected the actual parent company is there are a ton of deals because we're looking through, between 30 and 100,000 leads a month. We get to pluck out just the super duper home runs and buy them and just go to MLS or go to the portfolio with them.
That's our models are the exact same. We're just not scaled to the point. And I'm not solving back end issues that you are. I mean, what you just said is the exact same. We don't have a wholesaling business. If we added a wholesaling business, our volume would probably jump up because right now what we try to do with those leads that we would normally wholesale is we try to push them to our agents to list. And we have an agent on our team, so we partner with them and take 1% of the listing. I think we're going to end up having to tweak that. It's really weird to me, but our agents don't seem to have any interest in joining in on the lead gen. That's my fault. I didn't make it a priority. I didn't make it an expectation when we hired these people. Now they're spoiled with our own listing volume. I think right now on our board, we have 45 properties listed. 13 of them are under contract for sale. If you're a real estate agent and you've got 10 listings in this market, why would you pick up the phone and try to get one more? You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
It's like they're just not going to do it. So handing that ball off to them, basically, we got to have a listing agreement signed whenever it goes to them. And if we're not willing to do that, then they won't take care of their end of the deal. So we got our back end struggles. I think a wholesaling business, after you telling me where you're wholesaling at, I just kind of thought we're not going to wholesale anything in Kermit. You know what I mean? You can make money on MLS in Kermit, but
right.
Wholesaling something in Kermit, like kind of break that deal down for us. We were talking about it. It's a small multifamily. You've got the 30,000 foot view of it, but where did that buyer come from? How does that prospecting for buyers go?
So, man, we started out basically scraping all the Facebook groups and posting messages and building in the network. And then if someone would find us and buy a property, we'd add them to that. And we thought everything we're trying to do is increase our dollar per hour. And I think about that literally every single thing we do. And earlier when you were talking about sending your project properties that you don't want to buy over to the listing group, what happens if instead of you saying it's a 3% listing fee, it's a 5% listing fee and the buyer agent still gets 3%? Texas Real Estate Commission doesn't promulgate the percentage of commission. They just promulgate that you have to have it in writing, or they require that it's got to be in writing. So what happens if you say it's an 8% listing? Most of these people selling these houses, if you're going to treat them well and do right, they're lower price houses, you got to bump your rate up, but you can do it. And now your listing agent get 4 or 5% over 6%. That's a home run. So maybe that would be a way to increase your dollar per hour, because I've done it.
I love the dollar per hour metrics you just brought up.
But I want to talk about the Kermit deal. Like
we're for people are going to be like, where are they going with this? At the dollar per hour, I have told people 1,000 times. I don't know What made you decide to focus on the dollar per hour? Because for me,
because I ain't got no more hours.
That was it. I would look at a deal like the reason why wholesaling to me has never been something that I wanted to do, because I'm like, I'm going to have to be more intimately involved with the disposition of that property because people know who I am, right? So whenever I'm pushing this out there, you know, I'm going to have to be involved in that until it gets scaled up. And my dollar per hours are way low. Whenever it's easier for me to go find more private capital, right? And just take that deal down and let MLS dispo it for me. You know what I mean? Yep. And then I increased, we took our private capital from somewhere around $3 million to over $10 million now. Big jump, but we're just buying more properties. And then more and more people find out and they're like, hey man, I got 20, I got 30, I got 100. My mom's got 250. Can you use this money? And we're just like, yep. Increase our marketing. But the Kermit deal, you jump into
to your dollar per hour, we tried to find a way to do dispo and it be more effective. And we bought Investor Lift, and now we have more buyers than we'll ever need in our life. And we quit wasting all these time with these salespeople trying to drag in a buyer's list. Buy Investor Lift, it's done. We've been selling more, we sell faster, and it's expensive. It's like 20. I think we pay 25, 28 grand a year, something like that for it. So it isn't cheap.
Fuck, I knew I should have. I got a crayon to take notes with. I'm going to take notes real quick. Hey guys, if you're out there and you're not taking notes, you need to take notes, because I've seen Investor Lift posted on the internet. Yeah. But I've not seen it posted by anybody that I would call credible. And I feel like Logan is credible. So now I'm going to go look into this. And because we've got right now on our board, we've got $65,000 in wholesale fees. Our wholesaling model is really simple. Put a $5,000 or $10,000 assignment on it, call 6 people, and see which one of the 6 wants which one of the deals, right?
Wow.
And we push it to them, and they take it. Braxton brought me a pen. Thank you, Braxton. And we push it to them, and they buy it. We do the loan on it. We manage it if it ends up being a rental. We dispo it for them. I mean, they're just brought into our system and are another cog in our wheel, right? Yeah. But I don't go into the outside market. And the reason why this Kermit deal, you hit 80 G's on it. And
I think that was about the range. Yeah. It was a little under 100. Yeah. So it was supposed to be, we double close a large part of it. We might pay a couple of grand extra in fees, but that prevents any arguments from anybody getting sour on big assignment fees. And our assignment fees get pretty big these days. So we double close. And in this case, there was an overlap from when the buyer was ready to close and when the seller's contract was going to expire. And a lot of these folks, man, they don't want to extend. That some of them are finding out that we're wholesaling it. They don't like that. So we just going ahead. The moment we start getting bullshit from them, we just let them know, all right, we'll close tomorrow. Title's already done. So we'll send the money in title company and close. And we take that risk of losing that great equity grab. We take that risk off the table. So now I own it. And if this buyer closes, great. If he doesn't, I'll just put it on MLS, or maybe we have backup buyers already. But we know there's 20, 30, 40, 50% equity or more in the deal. I would spend my money on that deal outside of the wholesaling business. So why wouldn't I spend my money to support the wholesaling business?
Dude, you are but you're doing that with cash or private capital. Or is there any carrying costs associated with that money, or is that just a personal nest egg that y'all use to support the business?
Yeah, so me and my partner that own that one, we do fund that. I mean, so what we did is after that business has been in business for about 9 months, got really good financials, really good stability. We had really good paid-in capital. And one of the local banks we work with know us really well. So we went back to him and said, hey, by the way, this business has been operating 9 months. They're like, yeah, we saw that account open and it keeps doing its thing. So we showed them the financials and asked them for $1 million credit line. They gave it to us unsecured. Because
that's great. That's look.
So between that and then our equity, so that is also pretty big. We have enough to carry any of those deals.
Well, and that the hidden secret of this business are the credit lines. Going into COVID, we had we were basically operating our cash reserves as a credit line. Or we were using credit lines for cash reserves. And COVID taught us a strong lesson about that. A guy came to us and was like, I need my $300,000 back. Whew. We're like, all right. So there goes our liquidity. And then we're like, all right, let's draw these credit lines down. We drew the credit lines down. And then the credit lines came back and they're like, hey, we're like, nah, you're not getting these back. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
It worked out good, but I can just tell you, I love credit lines. I love the way you're utilizing credit lines.
Something else that's really important, the way we use them, we're not using them for owner distributions. We're not using them to pay overhead. It's only for a new deal that comes in.
Dude.
And let's say we have 6 deals that we own at the moment. And they're either being sold or whatever. And let's say we spend all of our equity, we spend our equity. Once we hit our threshold, then we start going to the credit line. And the first deal we sell, all the proceeds, the principal and profit, we all send it right back to the bank to get that credit line paid back down. So we're basically using our equity as quick as we can to get them paid back.
You have to use the credit lines attached to a property. If you take a friend of mine's in real estate now, you know, and he's got this 830 credit, he can buy whatever he wants whenever he wants. And they come through and they offer him this big credit line, not a bank, but like pretty much a loan shark. And he's like, dude, I can take this and I can hire and I can do this. And I'm like, dude, none of that with that money. No. If you borrow that money, it's attached to a property. And the moment that property pays off, you pay that off. And
in our business, you got to. There are some businesses that do use that because they have a long collection cycle in their work in progress. So they use credit lines to get through that. But for me, if I own that business, I'd live cheap and poor for 3 years to get enough cash to carry yourself. Because you're right, using debt to fund short-term expenses is scary.
Sure. No, it's a trap, because what you do is you fall into that trap. You need to be pushing more revenue. You need to be looking for more deals. You need to be focusing your attention on getting more revenue. You put a Band-Aid on it with debt, and then you don't focus on revenue, and you're just further behind. You know what I mean? Right. You just think that it's going to happen through your natural process, but it's already not happened through your natural process. So since it didn't happen through your natural process is probably a little bit broken, needs a little bit tweaking. You need to go chase more revenue. Using credit lines to buy property, A1. Using it to cover overhead to hire and stuff, there might be a time and place when you can do that very short term when you know for sure that you've got more money coming. But I would focus on more revenue, and more revenue would be, you know, another deal with some equity, see if you can wholesale it. Our monthly overhead right now is fixed cost, marketing, fixed cost is about 30 grand a month. Our monthly overhead. Our bonus.
Surprising how quick it grows. You don't think you're that big, and you look back and you say, "Oh shit."
Oh yeah. In our bonuses, we could bonus out to 40,000. Our monthly nut could be 70,000 a month with bonuses if nothing breaks on a tractor. You get what I mean? So it's like we could go to 70. So the first thing we do with our deals are we find the 70. Which one of these can we assign to get the 70 in the bank that's going to cover May? And then we don't have to worry about May no more. You know what I mean? Yeah. Everything that sells on MLS in May is now profit. Does that make sense? Like,
so that's wise. So many people can't do that, man. They just, every new nickel that comes in, they're trying to figure out what to do with it. You're rolling your equity and continuing to grow the company. So it's not spitting off a lot for you personally. And admittedly, our household has grown more in the last 3 years than it ever has, but it's growing at a very slow pace relative to the business. So
dude, I still make $1,000 a deal. That's it. $1,000. Like $1,000 a deal was the arrangement we put in place in 2015. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So I lived off of $1,000 a deal. I lived in an RV at our RV park, so I had free living. You know what I mean? But I lived off $1,000 a deal my entire real estate career. It hasn't changed. Now, does the income go up? Yeah, the income goes up. And now I take $1,000 a deal and I do things like pay for this baseball thing that we did yesterday. You get what I mean? I now have more disposable income, but instead of using it to go on more vacations or more distractions, I'm like, hey, let me grow my network. Let me show my appreciation for the people that are supporting us, go through it. So your Kermit deal, you hit 80 racks. You were able to double close that. Did that buyer come off investor lift? Did you look at that and go, you know, hey, this is a banger? You were obviously underwriting it worst case scenario, probably as a rental or owner finance. Did those exit strategies mean anything to that deal, or was it always going to be, I'm just going to buy this and resell it?
Man, I want grade A assets. I want marquee stuff. You know, we bought a lot of stuff over the years and we've kind of changed gears. I only want to own if it's an incredible location or an incredible type building or property. Outside of that, I really don't want it for long term. So my intent was always to buy and sell this. And if we made a mistake somewhere, we were going to sell it, and however big the mistake was, we'd take a little loss and move on, because that goes back to that dollar per hour thing. I would rather write a $30,000 or $40,000 check right now and get that time suck off my books than spend the next 4 years trying to work my way out of this stupid little hole and kill all my valuable time.
Dude, that's so smart. We lost 12 grand on a 3-unit. That's the last big one I can remember. We lost $1,000 on a single family. It's funny that's like $1,000, but we owned it 9 months. But it was the same way. It's like I don't want to own this. I don't want to own this long term, because I know I'm about to have to dump 20 in it just to get it rentable, or I can eat $1,000 today, and I would. The $12,000 loss was really just more timing than anything. It was COVID. It was, you know what I mean? Fear, uncertainty. It's like, I've got a buyer. Let's just take this one in the shorts. But I do agree with you that taking that loss, is probably the smart decision there. But I always underwrite it from like a different angle. I'm like, first step, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to try to sell it. If it doesn't sell, what do I have to do to rent it out? If that number is too high on what I have to remodel it, if it's too high, then I'm like, well, let's test the owner finance market. See if I can originate some paper, and then I can sell that paper. You know what I mean? And
see, I gotta look at that and say, dude, now it's maybe it's $150,000 house or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I start to look at all those things and say, oh my gosh, these are so many steps. And what I would rather see you do is go back to that little screen over there looking for that 20 unit and sell that sucker and get out of it. I know you underwrite that way. And early on, that was our safety mechanism to never risk principal. But when I'm talking about being efficient and dollar per hour, let me give you another example of that kind of ideology. Early on, I talk about this on Facebook all the time. It's so important. I lost 54 grand on the single family flip years ago, 6 years ago, maybe. And that was the biggest loss in the world to me at that point. I looked at my books from last year, and dude, I had 2 projects that I totally wrote down together. One of them was 80 grand and the other one was like 60 grand. And I ended up giving up on those because they were really long, nasty lawsuits that I still think I could have won if I kept fighting, but it wasn't worth my time at that point. So I gave up my investment in it and the legal fees. I wrote it off. I remember being on the phone during a mediation, and I got a call from one of the attorneys who was working on this $3.5 million warehouse that I'm doing right now. And I was in this mediation about fucking 100 grand in equity in this stupid house I'm fighting on. And that warehouse has a whole lot more than that. And I got off the phone with that big deal, and I went back to this one. I said, give it to them. And they're like, what are you talking about? You've been fighting these people for 18 months. And I said, I got more important fish to fry. In fact, I'm not even going to sit through this mediation. You give them what they want. You draft the docs. You sign as my agent. I got to go. And they wrapped that whole thing up. Combined between the two, I wrote off $150,000 loss. But back then, a $54,000 loss was the biggest thing to me in the world. Today, it didn't mean anything because my dollar per hour in relative dollars makes sense.
Well, I agree with you 100% on all of that. The reason why I underwrite the way I do is because that's the way my system's built out. It don't cost me any more time. If I own or finance something, and then it's just another buyer that comes in with the offer, right? The decision is made before we ever buy it, whether it's going to be an owner finance.
For us, we're not really set up for that. So it does take a fair amount of drain for us to go and do it.
Like if it goes to rental, it's just an app on the phone. I tag somebody. I say, hey, make this start happening, and it's over with. The reason why we rent it out and hold it long term, I mean, this is lessons from the pandemic. All the assets that we thought we had overpaid for 5 years ago, if we sold them all, we'd put $6 million in the bank. Operating those, even if I operate those at a break-even point, right? Even if they do not pay a dime, the depreciation that they bring to the portfolio overall is worth it. Owner financing, I don't want to own long-term owner finance paper. I hate servicing it. I hate bookkeeping for it. I hate owning it all together. But if I can originate that paper and pass it to somebody who does, then I'm going to do that. But, we do make those ugly decisions. I mean, hell, probably 2 or 3 of the 13 that are under contract to sell are not going to make any money. We took a big risk on a lot of small lots. We bought one small lot for like $3 grand, sold it for 40. We were like, yeah, let's go buy 20 of these. We went and bought 20 of them, and the market did not respond that way. So now we're selling them for $10,000, $15,000, $9,000. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know where we're going to come in on those. We're not going to make a lot of money if we make any money at all. But just what you said, getting the capital back in play, getting the bandwidth back open to do that is fine. But it doesn't really cost me a lot of time doing that. My time is all spent on the marketing, looking for the next deal. But honestly, same way that you've got a 3 unit or a $3.5 million deal, I want to start looking at the 300 unit deals because I know that's the deal that my skill set. I can go find that deal for 12 to 15 million. Get it properly capitalized and operating. Just get good books. Show what it's capable of, and double my money in one move. Because that's the skill set that owning rentals and owning a property management company brings to the table. You get what I mean?
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely.
If you can't do that, then you don't necessarily have that opportunity, I guess is the way to say it, or you got to rely on somebody else's expertise to do that. Where I feel so lucky that we've remodeled whole apartment complexes. We did one in Comanche, Texas, one in Coleman, Texas, one in Hamilton, Texas. We did one in Lytle. And these are big projects that we did. We're doing one in Hillsboro right now. These are all smaller deals, but if I take that same concept that I learned on the 20 unit and put it on 300, I just got to find that opportunity. But I got to be looking for that opportunity. I found it. I know where it is. The guy owns a winery in California. He's 84 years old. We were talking about the the guys that we buy from before we got on here.
Yeah.
But every time I call him, he just pretends like, he don't really own it. He's like, well, what's going on with it? And we're like, well, this is going on with it. And he's like, oh, okay. And we're like, for a guy that doesn't own it, you sure do seem interested in what's going on with your property. So we're just going to have to go to California and go to a winery and, be like, hey man, you're 92 years old. You've owned this thing since 2002. You don't want to own it no more. It's apparent with how it's being ran and operated. Just let me take this problem, make it mine. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But anyways, keep going. What else has changed in your business from the title issues? You just talked about writing down a bunch of legal fees. You were doing the real hard. You were solving the real hard problems in real estate. Is that still the core function of your business, or did you, when you switched to commercial and small multifamily, did something else kind of shift and change in your mindset?
Some shift and change happened in mindset, but in operation, not really. I mean, we're still doing the same exact stuff. I got a 52 unit right now that's got tons of problems. If somebody got murdered in it during contract, the owner decided he didn't want to sell, and I decided he should still sell. So we got a district court judge sorting that out right now. He had an owner that got arrested for trading money for services for tenants or for rent for services, things like that. It's a shit show. That's going to have a lot of legal fees too. That's a great deal. It's 52 units for $1 million, probably worth double that. So we're still using that same model for the commercial stuff. I get lucky and find more clean commercial deals than I expected. But, most recent one I just got, guy was 2 years behind. His tenant wasn't performing or paying the taxes. This guy had kind of retired and he was drunk and just bullshit. Same stuff, So it really is the same model. It's just now we're doing it with a 600 or a 300 acre ranch, a 25,000 square foot warehouse. Now, half of those commercial deals come in. Commercial is much harder to value than residential because the data doesn't exist. And there's a business case for each one. Unless you understand it really well and you understand what's happening in the market really well, you're going to miss it. You can ask these commercial brokers all day long, as smart as they think they are, they're in the middle of it. They still sometimes can't pin the tail on the donkey. So I'm finding that as long as we get really good at valuing, all we have to do on commercial is ask enough people if they want to sell, and if we can hit that value real good, real consistently, someone comes in lower. When they do, we, set the hook reel in real quick.
Dude, so when you're talking about commercial, you're talking about small multifamily, warehouse space. What are you talking about? Office.
So I got a 15,000 square foot office I picked up recently. We're doing that one. This is crazy, man. I call it small multifamily. It's the one I talked about earlier, that $2.5 million wholesale deal. We should talk about that in a bit. I've got several warehouses. I've got some land that would work well for industrial, so I'll still call that kind of commercial. Yeah. We looked at another office, things like that. I'm looking at another warehouse, about a 40,000 square foot warehouse.
The noise in the marketplace right now. And when I say noise, I mean threats of recession, food shortages, all the nonsense, all the fuel prices, all this. Yep. Does that kind of change the way you, like, whenever you're evaluating a small office space or large office space or any of that industrial type real estate? Do you go, oh man, let me hit the pause on this, or is it something that whenever you're deep
Dude,
into
my debt's cheap and I'm buying shit at 50 cents on the dollar. I mean, I'm trying to get as much as I possibly can afford because interest rates are going to be going up. So some of these deals like that office I have, it's going to be long term, and I'm going to employ debt because I can get a better return on the cash in my operating business. So, on those kind of assets, I'll use the debt, and even the credit lines, they're starting to increase in the rates a little bit. So I got to think about that. But my debt's still cheap compared to most people. And if I'm buying, 30 to 60 cents on the dollar, who gives a shit? The market can crumble by 30% and I'm still going to be able to make a little money. The market can crumble by probably 50%, and that's my break-even point. I'm cool with that.
I understand that part of it. And I understand it in single family housing, right? What I don't understand is if it's an office space like the one I'm in right now.
Yeah.
I love this location close to the courthouse. These are all defense attorneys in this building. They're going to be here because they want to walk to the courthouse. This is a fabulous location. That courthouse is never going to go anywhere. So this is a great location asset. If this got distressed, I would, you know what I mean? Like I would, if he thought it was distressed, like I would definitely step in and
try to buy
this asset and have no qualms about it. But whenever you're looking at an industrial space or something like that, and it's, let's say it's in an area where, it's oil field heavy or whatever it is, like
I wouldn't do it out there. Remember earlier on, I was saying I really only want marquee locations. Let's just pick, Alamo Heights in San Antonio, for example. It's one of the wealthiest old neighborhoods in San Antonio. I don't care what happens, dude. You own property on Broadway or Sunset or Austin Highway, doesn't matter.
So location is the number one driving factor on that deal versus the equity versus everything else versus market conditions, everything else. Location is what you're underwriting first.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about that $2.5 million hotel deal. $2.5 million. You put it on the market for $2.5 million, I guess, or you made $2.5 million. What's the deal there?
So it was an $800,000 wholesale that wound up looking like a $600,000 wholesale because of buyer failure. Yeah, let me say that right. It was an $800,000 wholesale that turned into a $600,000 wholesale because of buyer failure.
So your end buyer, whenever you're wholesaling it, didn't come through.
Yeah, he totally shit the bed. So what happened is one of the guys in our wholesaling company, this is one of the hottest zip codes in Austin, overlooking Bolden Creek, Zilker Park area, like mega hot. Hottest town. I mean, basically, arguably, Austin's the hottest real estate market in the United States right now because everybody's flocking there. And this is one of the top 3 hottest zip codes there. So I knew we had something. One of the guys in the wholesale company acquisitions has been hounding. It's 2 fourplexes on a third of an acre. It's 4 legal lots. A third of an acre in that zip code is pretty hot stuff, worth about $150 a square foot or so.
I got you.
So get a call from the wholesale company. He says, I'm looking at this thing to 1.6 million. I'm like, dang, man, that sounds kind of rich for our normal deals. But let me get a look at it. I was like, oh, wow, this is more. And he goes, guess what? It gets better. She just agreed for 1.4. And I said, man, you better sign up before she changes her mind.
Time out. Now, I want everybody that's listening to understand what my dude just said. They came in at 1.6 million, and the first thing he thought about was that's more than we normally pay for stuff of similar nature, right?
Yeah.
The biggest deal on our board right now is $1 million deal. We should make $1 million after everything. And I would not have called them because it was a price point that we never buy at, except I wanted to get better on the phone.
Remember earlier, though, you said we're starting to look at these kind of apartments because that's what we want to do. If we don't do the looks, we won't get the deal. That's exactly what happened here. Our typical wholesale is 400 to 800 grand, a small multifamily. But I just basically put everybody on alert and said, look at stuff up to about 2 million. Pay attention to them, and let's just see. And we've been surprised. When 80% of our deals are, less than 300 grand, but 20% of them are like multi-million.
And we're in more tertiary markets. So we like to buy $150,000 or less. So we're playing way smaller than you are in the single family zone. Multifamily, if it's multifamily at all, it's got any price on it, I want to know about it so I can evaluate it and look at it. But this particular deal wasn't either of those things. It was a $600,000 land purchase, but it's 31 acres right outside of Austin. And it's divided already into 4 lots and has water, electricity, all the things you need. Top comps are 90,000 an acre. Bottom bitch comps are 35,000 an acre, and we're buying it for somewhere around 20,000 an acre. So
you got money there.
This is the kind of deal that, I'm looking at it and I'm like, again, I wouldn't have. I called the guy. He named his price. I pulled it up. As soon as I pulled it up, I saw where it was, and I was like, "Yep, what's your email? I'll send you a contract right now." We followed up with that.
You know what? Let's talk about something else. We're talking about efficiency, and that's kind of been a theme today. I want to keep talking about that wholesale deal, but valuing. You just said I'm gonna take it up. I'm gonna look at. I'm gonna value it real quick. That's another huge push we had for the last 6 months. Even our guys have been doing this for years are still somewhat slow to value. We talked about how hard it is for commercial guys. We've done little mini workshops in our office in the last 6 months with everybody in here to work on valuations and how to figure it out quick. Because if you're going to look at, we're starting some months from 30 to 100,000 leads. And obviously we don't get that many calls, but that's what we're starting out with, a prospect list. Dude, our guys are on the phone all day and they have to figure out how to say, is it a deal or not a deal, and move to the next one so they can cover ground. And that's a huge bottleneck in the organization. And you just said earlier, man, I might have missed that one. So we're trying to figure out how to not leave 600, 800,000 on the table, but be efficient as heck.
Let me help you with that. I tried to solve that exact same problem in our very small organization. And here's what I figured out. If the client has agreed to a price, right? They've agreed to a price, whatever that price is, 200,000, $1 million. They've agreed to a price. They haven't signed anything until they've signed a contract, right? So I just do my best job of negotiating. I tell all my new people, you just do your best job of negotiating, okay? But you do not get paid until there's a contract signed. So our new people get paid $250 for a signed contract. Now, once it's a signed contract, it gets bumped up from a new person to a more experienced person, and then they go evaluate it because, again, what's our dollar per hour, right? I don't need high-level people looking at maybes. I will not look at a maybe. I will not look at something that is not under contract already. So when they're trying to evaluate and figure out what it's worth, that's kind of secondary to getting the contract signed. I want them to get a contract signed. I want them to work on the skill set of getting contract signed.
So we had that same initiative also, but what we ran into is we were canceling a large portion of deals. And when you got 1 or 2 people running the shop early on, it didn't bother us. But when we had 9 or 10 people in that organization, and it goes from an acquisitions person to a contract transaction coordinator into the title company, we got to send in earnest money. When all that stuff started happening, I started looking at that whole process and say, whoa, I want to try to get the people on the front end better, not to the point where they become slow, but I just want them vetting and moving. And that's where we chose to push our arrow or our needle to.
Well, we train that in the negotiation. So my dude comes in and says he wants 600,000. They're instantly trained to offer him 3.
Why so much?
No, it's just that we want to find out. We want to find out where
you at.
Where are you at on this spectrum? I've got this. They got the cash flow quadrant. I've got the fucking the motivated seller quadrant. Okay, there's sophisticated, unsophisticated, motivated, unmotivated. Okay, in this quadrant, I want to deal with unsophisticated 90% of my time. I want to be dealing with unsophisticated buyers. Okay, I don't want people that know what it is. My least amount of time I want to deal with is a sophisticated buyer. I don't want to deal with a sophisticated buyer at all. I don't want to deal with them. I want to figure out where they're at on this spectrum instantly, and the 50% offer will land them on that quadrant. Motivation, you can have all the motivation in the world. You can be facing foreclosure. You've dealt with this, probably dealing with foreclosures a million times. You've dealt with this seller that has all the motivation in the world to sell, but they're sophisticated and they will not take a discount on what their property's worth. They have all the motivation, but all the sophistication, so there's no need to work with it. And then an unmotivated seller that has no motivation at all, you know what I mean, that's unsophisticated, they're like, well, what's your offer going to be? Okay, we don't give them a pop quiz at that point. We don't start asking them about the property. We ask one question: is it livable? Okay, if it's land, you know what I mean, it doesn't really matter to us about the land. Is it cleared off? Is it flood zone? Is it a toxic waste? Whatever. We have different questions for land, but is it livable? Yes or no? Okay. And how much are you thinking? If they're like, I don't know, what would you take? Then we teach them to offer the tax value, which they have in front of them at that time, at 70% of tax value.
That's an easy answer. Yeah.
It's an easy answer. And then it lands them on that spectrum. And if they're agreeable at 70% of tax value, if they're agreeable, the next thing they got to do is get the contract signed. So it's a real fast flush. But then once they got the contract signed, now the upper level people grab it. And if we need to retrade it, we'll retrade it. But most of the time we're landed somewhere good once we got a contract signed. So evaluating it super fast with all the intricacies of a good real estate investor for a new person, it's overwhelming. It's like drinking from a fire hose if I give them too many data points. So I'm like, if they say it's rented, when you ask, is it livable? They're like, yeah, it's rented right now. Ask how much it's rented for, make a 2% rent offer. Just boom, boom, done.
Easy. That's kind of an order of magnitude effort. Are we anywhere near what might work for me? And if we're somewhere near that, cool. If not, I get it.
Yeah, no. And then they're just boom, boom, off the phone onto the next call. And they're only calling warm leads. You know what I mean? They're only calling somebody that called us off a mailer or that are cold callers that are not very well trained, have already talked to and have an agreement on price. So they're calling the absolute nicest people on planet Earth most of the time. Cold calling is brutal assault on your senses. You know what I mean? But so they're dealing with people that are already in agreement. But the $2.4 million wholesale, it was a failed wholesale. You had an $800,000 assignment on that. How did that work? Were you actually going to assign it? Were you going to double close? Yeah. You were going to double close. Why did the buyer fall out? Just was he daisy chaining? Did he just not have the money? What was that reason? Do you remember?
He was a younger developer, and I wasn't too abreast on this one, but we'll look at reports and say, hey, what do we have to close in the next couple of weeks that are the big deals, the big spreads? And I saw that one on the board. I'm like, oh, shit, we did get that one. It's coming. So my next question was check with the lender, have your own conversation with the lender. Did we get proof of funds? You know, you're like grilling them because if I got to pay $1.4 million last fucking minute, it's gonna, yeah, right. I want to know. I want some runway is what I want.
Yeah, you want runway. You know, that's a tough. I've got a guy, I swear to God, this gentleman, I don't know how much money he's got. I hope he never watches our channel, but it's the most amazing thing. The reason why we have a bigger wholesale model than wholesale is because when you start beating the bushes for money, I got a dude that's got 900,000 out with us right now on one deal, right? So he is sitting making 10% interest only on one deal. And we had a lender that he had a couple loans that were going to close and they didn't close. And he let us know last minute. He's like, hey, I don't have it. We're buying a 10 unit multifamily for like $350, you know? And I'm like, oh, what are we going to get? $350? You know what I mean? So I'm like, we're going to have to piecemeal this together with several people. It's okay. We'll figure it out. You know what I mean? I'm like, we'll bring our own cash in, pay ourselves back, whatever we got to do. We'll get this thing closed on time. But I was like, you know what? Let's call our boy up. So we called him up. We're like, hey, you said you wanted to do bigger deals when we asked you about the 900. He's like, yeah, we got this other one. It's 10 units. We need, 370 on Friday. It's like Wednesday. And he's like, yeah, I can do it. Yeah, I can do it. Like, again, I can't wire money till tomorrow though, because I'm in Vegas. And we're like, no problem, my guy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it really is amazing. But go back to that deal fell out. So now you're looking at your processes, making sure you got proof of funds.
Basically, I wasn't getting the answer from the team that I wanted to get. So I said, I want to get on the phone to this dude. So I ended up on the phone with the guy. And this was the day before closing. He was telling me there were some lender problems because the lender didn't know about the zoning. And I was like, you're a developer, dude. You're going to contract a month. You've done this, right? So he gets his entitlement girl on the phone that works for him. And they were basically saying you couldn't build as much as they thought you could build. And I was like, I don't believe any of this, man. I see it a different way. So we got into kind of like a back and forth. Anyway, I said, well, why don't you hire your civil engineer and have him issue you a statement right now and review the codes, zoning codes, and tell you. And he's like, well, you can't get them on the phone for 3 weeks. I'm like, this guy's an idiot. So, it's Austin and it is busy, but I just basically called a couple of my friends that are attorneys and said, look, I need to get a zoning attorney or civil engineer on the phone right now. I got two of them, agreed them to pay each of them $1,000 for a 1 hour phone call, and they'd have to write a letter, $1,000. I got two of them to agree. They both made the statement that they said that you could build up to 8 units on it. We're great. So then I get it back to him by email that night. And the next morning I say, dude's closing day, time to close. And he starts telling me, well, I haven't talked to the engineers. I said, you didn't ask to talk to them. I had certified letters from these guys. What the hell is going on? And I noticed on one of his other emails, one of the girls in his office was attached. So I just called her direct, the entitlement girl. And she flat out said, "Oh, no, we're satisfied with the entitlements." I was like, "What are you talking about? Last night you said you weren't." She's like, "Well, he's trying to basically get some things together with lending." I was like, "That motherfucker." So
I hate it. Dude,
we called him and put him on the spot. And he basically said that he didn't want to close because I was mean to his other staff members. So I said, "Okay, I'm keeping your 22 grand. Or I'm going to sue the shit out of you. Release that 22 grand in earnest money immediately." He literally released that stuff in like single digit minutes. It was nuts.
That's awesome.
But then I had to circle the wagons, wire the money by 2:00, $1.4 million. So that was a frustrating day in our office, but we got it done.
How did you do that? What every credit line did you dip into your personal savings?
No, what I did is I basically made an intercompany loan from another one of our companies over into that company, and then drew the credit line to fucking zero. Awesome. I mean, we have 6 other wholesale deals right now. They're small multifamily, so some, the money adds up there.
Yeah.
And this was literally the worst possible time. So I told everybody, dude, y'all have to start making closings immediately so we can cash back up. Otherwise, it's going to be a tough couple of weeks. And we had a closing scheduled literally the next week that were substantial. So, you're there, but when it's all there, man. Like, so we closed.
Look, you got to believe in the deal good enough to go to zero. You have to go to zero. If you weren't willing to go to zero on it, you know what I mean? On a big deal like that, is it really even a deal?
And see, we never go to that. We never go that far, but
we knew,
in this time it was right.
Right.
So went ahead and closed on it that Friday, popped it on MLS the next morning. So Saturday. So it was live and ready to go. And I didn't want to wait for this thing to do its job, even though it's in the hottest market that there is. Really, it's still a $2.5 million deal, 2.4. So in my mind, I thought, I'm going to do what I got to do. So I do a MLS export of every agent that sold land downtown in the last 12 months, blast them on emails. I find the 5 best comps, find the buyer and seller agents on both sides, start cold calling those fools, like hammer time.
Yeah, no, it's time to get that money back. It's time to get that liquidity back in our lives.
Right. Hey, and those aren't activities that I usually do, but this meant a lot to me, and it was a huge deal. Dude. And I wanted the perfect, best service that I could get for this deal, so I did it.
Dude, I love it. And I learned that from you at your office three years ago about calling all the agents that have sold something similar in the area, ripping that data from MLS and doing it. I may or may not have RVM'd the entire MLS with a voicemail that said, "Yeah, somebody said you had a buyer looking for a property in this school district." and routed it through a CRM back to the real estate agent. He got 476 phone calls.
Wow.
And like 7 offers. But it was sitting there, and it sat there for 60 days. And he told me, he was like, "Hey, yeah, blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, "Have you called everybody that has, in that area? Because that's a badass school district. Like, it should have sold." And he's like, "Yeah, I have." And then boom, I RVM'd it, and we had a cash offer, multiple. I was like, "Okay, I got you, bro."
That's when I see commercial buildings sitting and residential not doing really well. Somebody didn't sit down and do the work. And I understand you got a business, you got family, you got stuff to do. But if you train everyone to do that, you're going to get 70%. That's how people are going to act. Your shit is going to be way faster than everybody else's.
Way faster.
How it works.
Yep. Yeah, no, we did look, price don't sell, effort does. I mean, it will sell. If you got more attention on it, if everybody in the marketplace knows it exists, everybody's going to look at it. We've incentivized, like what you said about the listing agreement. We've opened up our listings to 10% and give most of it to the buyer's agent. You know what I mean? In the COVID market, we're like, we will give up 10% of this deal to the real estate agents, but 7 of it is going to the buyer's agent because we weren't getting any showings. So, people are like, "That's crazy." I'm like, I thought it was the end of the world. You know what I mean? Like I thought, we were out of this. But that deal, it sold. How long did it take to close off MLS? Was it a typical 60-day close, or did you get somebody come in fast?
I shouldn't be talking about this because it hasn't closed yet. Contract hit my desk today to sell.
No, let's just be quiet about it then. We don't want to talk about it no more. I'll tell you about this deal I did. You know where Smithville, Texas is?
I've heard it, but I don't know.
It's east of Austin, right?
Okay.
But a little bit further out than, say, Bastrop. It's further out than Bastrop. Not a little bit further. It's further out than Bastrop. So I'm like, Elon Musk is over there. It's something, but I was like, I don't know. Guy, we bought his mom's lot for like 12 grand in Smithville because you could put a mobile home on it. So we bought that.
Oh yeah.
He comes to us and he's like, "Hey, I want to sell my fourplex over here, my eightplex. I don't remember if it was 4 or 8. No, it was a fourplex for sure. It's 200,000 a door." And he's like, I want 600,000 for it. And I was like, I didn't even evaluate it. I just heard the number and I was like, dude, let us list it for you. He's like, no, I know a real estate agent. And I'm like, did they tell you that 600,000 number? He's like, yeah. I'm like, my agent can get you 800 because I just did the 200,000 a door in my head. I had no idea what we could get for it, like at all. Yeah. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. So we kept going back and forth, got him on the listing agreement. She listed that thing. I think it had like 9 offers at 800. Wow. And people coming in above and closing fast and all this and that. And then I'm sitting there thinking, you are the dumbest human on planet Earth because you did not evaluate that deal because you heard the price and you didn't want to buy it at that price. So you didn't even pull any data on it. You just closed him on a listing. I mean, we got $8 grand on that deal when it closed. We had a couple buyers back out and ended up picking up another one. But we got $8 grand on it. But I still think back on that and I'm like, man, I mean, that would have been a pretty sweet deal to just take down because it closed super fast. But what's something else you're working on right now, Logan?
Yeah. Say that again.
What's something else you're working on?
Man, I just got a voicemail on my phone. I see it, and 2 people said congratulations. And based on who it's from, that means it's the buyer of my current office, the one I'm in right now, got final approval to close. So
one of my tenants.
Yes, man. No, this is a special building, and it's not very often you get the opportunity to own something quite like this. And I've loved every minute here. The problem is I'm out of space, man. I bought another office over kind of Broadway and 410, right in a good little area. Guy was in bankruptcy. It's typical shit. 15,000 square foot office built in the 50s. So it's masonry construction. It's darn good bones, but it needs to be redone. So I bought that in December, and the wholesale company's operating over there now. I got a bunch of tenants in it, but I cleared out the first floor and got an architect and engineering firm, and they're about done, or they're going to get some permits in about 2 weeks. So we're going to swamp that thing out, fresh, brand new, awesome finish out, and then I'll lease this back until probably Christmas time. That's when we get to move in the new place.
Dude, that's going to be amazing. What?
I'm excited.
I don't even want to know how much you selling it for. If you want to say, if you don't want to
this
say
one.
Yeah,
I better not say because of all of the people involved and whatnot.
No, I got you.
They're fairly private. If this were just me involved, I'd tell you, but the buyers are fairly private.
No, I'm super stoked for you because I know, like me and you were on the roof on that building before you'd redone the parking lot. They were down there working on the parking lot. You're showing me the whiskey cellar. I mean, dude, that place is that I love that.
It's really
office.
Cool.
Like it is a really cool office.
I'm gonna miss it. It's hard to let go of it, but
well, sometimes, I mean, if you guys,
the neat thing is we've had a place to be here since 2018. I'm gonna do great on the deal. I've had great tenants that's helped me with the income on this in one of the most appreciating times in a market, and the buyer needs the space. They're going to be able to get the same model I did. They have their own space up there. They're going to get a tenant on the downstairs. It's going to cover a big part of their monthly obligations. So they're going to have a low burden rent, and they get to become the owner of this real estate that in this neighborhood continues to grow. So I think they're going to do great. We're going to be happy. We're going to have to spend every nickel that we get out of this and some more for the remodel. So I need it now.
That's awesome, though. I mean, I just like the idea of having 15,000 square foot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're in 1,200 square foot. And you're moving into 15,000. I'm like, I'm doing the math on it right now. I'm looking out the window like, hey, where's my 15,000 square foot? I need to start growing up.
So half that's rental. Only half of that's mine. The other half is rental,
dude.
So what I paid based on what I'm going to be into it for, based on the rent rates, I'll have basically a little bit of cash flow, but I'll have no money out of pocket every month. After I collect all the income, pay property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and a little bit of note on it, I don't have to pay a nickel for my office.
Dude, that's awesome. The deal that you posted, that letter from the Real Estate Commission in Oregon, why did you get a letter from the Real Estate Commission in Oregon?
So somehow a person in Oregon landed on our buyer list, and we blasted them with a multifamily in Corpus Christi, and I don't know what it was about us, but it was us and one other investor. There were 2 complaints attached. There were 2 marketing pieces attached to one complaint. So it named us and the other investor, and they basically said we were selling real estate without a license, but they highlighted our equitable interest in contract selling disclosure right there in our email body. So when I read it, I thought, all right, well, I knew what to do, but we'll send it over to legal, let them respond. And as our attorney was calling us to ask the questions, this was like 2-3 days later, all of a sudden we get a letter from Oregon saying they investigated the claim. They're going to take no further action.
But it was a multifamily in Corpus Christi, and the real estate commission in Oregon, they thought
Right.
would have jurisdiction over it.
They don't. That's the problem. They have lack of standing. They don't have standing for that claim. And the other place they're losing, they lost standing, is we're not licensed agents. So something I started to realize, I'm doing a look in on that whole wholesaler deal where you got to be licensed to do this. If you don't have a license, the real estate commission in the state has no purview.
I know.
So who's going to enforce that unless the attorney general wants to make an initiative to go after wholesalers? And they got fish to fry, man. Wholesaling real estate is like this compared to all the shit they got to deal with. They didn't give a
that was the biggest shock and awe for me. Like with wholesaling, the police officer that knocks on your door when you're in trouble for wholesaling in the state of Texas is the Texas Rangers. So it's pretty scary. But that's who they send out. So I have not had that knock at my door, but I did. I was involved with somebody that not involved with them, but I made a complaint against somebody, and they had the Texas Rangers knock on their door. So
wow.
When it's egregious enough, Trek just hands it over to the Texas Rangers, and the Texas Rangers go over there and say, "Hey, bro, what you got going on over here?" Then you're better off not legal advice, but don't talk to the police. So,
right, yeah.
I mean, I would just at that point in time, I would just call my lawyer if they showed up and asked anything. Yep. But yeah, but that was
so we've had that happen in a couple of states now. We also had it happen, or we got somebody who did one of the do not call list letters where he says he's going to sue you and all that. And I heard your response and a couple others. And I just thought, this is a JP court deal.
Yep.
What's he going to get? $400, $500 if he can substantiate damages or something. If he can win a judgment against me for $500, guess what? I'll pay the judgment. So I decided to not answer him. I'll let, I haven't gotten a service on this yet. So I don't know if he's going to do it or be smart. If he's bright, he'll wait till he has 200 of them and go do service all in one shot, go to the same hearing and do them all. I don't know if he will, but I'm just going to let him go get his judgment. And then you know what? He doesn't know what I do for a living is strip judgments and liens.
we're litigating one right now for the simple reason that he took us to JP court, and JP court, you can ask for attorney's fees. So it's like, it's fucking Judge Judy in this bitch. Like, yeah, we're countersuing him. You know what I mean? For our attorney's fees. So we put our attorney on him. He did not issue proper service. So first thing we had to do was file a change of venue. He got mad because they granted the change of venue without a hearing, and he was bitching at our attorney about it. And he's like, you're complaining to me, but go talk.
But you're complaining about me, motherfucker.
Yeah,
it's like you and your wife get into a fight, and then she cries on your face, on your shoulder after you beat her up. Like, what the fuck? People?
Yeah, it was a weird deal. And then he's bidding against himself. He's bid himself down to like $200 now, and we're just like, nah, we got a hearing on the 24th. We'll be there. You should be too. Like, you don't want to.
So this is a good lesson for folks that are going to play around the legal realm. And I've done this, and I've learned the easy way, and I've learned the hard way, and it helps me get better at this. But you're going to go pick, let's say, 40 fights. He's doing this as a job. You're going to pick 40 fights. You're probably going to win 38 of them, hands down, maybe 39. But there could be one in that group, or maybe one in the next group, that's going to grab you and drag you with them. And it might not be so easy to run and hide. Now, I've had a couple like that I thought was going to be an easier fight, and it wasn't. And I realized, oh, man, I really got to go the distance on this. And I didn't expect to. And if they make a good counterclaim, whether it's good or not, and they can kind of reel that in, now you can't just non-suit and walk away. And if they're pissed, they're going to come for money.
Dude,
you got to be really careful and know what you're doing.
This guy does not own the property. This is the craziest fucking dude on planet Earth. He does not own the property. He calls us. he leaves a voicemail that says, text me if it's easier. Okay. Doesn't even own the property. We start engaging him via text. Okay. He brings up the address of the property, which then, because we're trying to figure out what address, we don't know who's calling us. You know what I mean?
Right.
So finally he gives us the address of the property. He gives us the address of the property. We fill out a contract. We send it over to him via email. He then, I don't know, didn't even, I guess he skipped trace. I don't really know. He didn't serve the registered agent for the LLC. He served the person that signed the contract. And I don't know how he even got that person's address or information. I guess he skip traced them, but he's had several federal lawsuits where some people have settled with him and some people haven't. I don't know why he didn't take this to the federal court. Maybe he withdraws this one and then takes it to the federal court. But whatever it is, everybody's like, the cheap money is to pay the $200 and go away. But I'm like, no, he's going to have to drive up to Limestone County, come over here to Marcus Hanna, the guy that gave me my occupational license, and you know what I mean, deal with our attorney and really state his case. And we have all the recordings of his calls and texts that we're going to go in there. He asked for all this broad discovery. We're like, he didn't ask the court if he could have discovery, deny that shit. And that's what our hearing's over, is whether or not he gets discovery. And we're going to give him our one
page. Do you
page.
even get discovery in a JP venue?
I don't think so, but we're gonna give him our discovery because we don't care. He's not gonna get the broad discovery of everybody we've ever talked to, but he's gonna get his discovery for where we've talked to him.
Isn't that ridiculous? I want a list of every lead you ever called in your entire business career. Like, you fucking kidding me?
You an idiot? You don't have
no. I'll give you the lead list on my desk. That's about as fresh as I got.
Yeah, it's like it's a weird deal, but
yeah.
Those things, like going into the JP court, I hope we get attorney's fees. I hope this guy learns a lesson, but he probably won't. And to be honest, people do, he has to bait 20 people in like that a month because of where that property is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's not even on the do not call list, but everything, or he wasn't at the time that we contacted him. It's a weird scenario, but it just is what it is. It's the risk of doing this business. It's one of the reasons we went heavy into direct mail versus the calling and texting. We do not have a text marketing platform right now. We will have one in the future, but we're not gonna dive into that on this podcast. I'll talk with you about it off camera. But anyways, what else you got going on? How can you help the people that are watching?
Well, let's see here. I'll tell you what's kind of, fresh on my mind, I guess. We talked about being more efficient with your time, putting your activities or your resources towards high revenue generating activities so you can help increase your dollar per hour. Something else we really worked hard at, and you and I talked about this a little bit, is the hiring stuff. I was kind of doing like every other investor, trying to get a fair deal on labor. And I realized that I was struggling, and this really good business that we built was having hiccups. So I had to get beyond that and thought about it and said, man, when I go buy some other kind of service, I usually want to buy the best one. I'm not trying to find the cheapest lawyer or the cheapest surveyor. I'm trying to find the one who's got his shit together and is usually on the higher end of the spectrum. So start doing the same thing with hiring. Folks in our wholesale company, we gave generous salaries. Last month, we just did payroll for last month. We had $80,000 in commissions we paid last month to them, and it's a pretty darn good split. Plus, it's got a base salary. Plus, we have benefits, health insurance, all that kind of stuff, man. The guy that manages that company brings them lunch every damn day, just about. I mean, that's $2,500 a month. This stuff adds up, man. But we're doing that because we get really, really good people. I found an activity that I get to do nowadays. I take my to-do list, and I can basically pop an email out in the morning, and I can cut half of the things off my to-do list by getting two of the folks in here to help me knock this stuff out. And now I can go to the other part of that to-do list that drives revenue in the door.
That's the exact same way that my day is set up. I manage it through an app, an iPhone app, Teams, Slack. They have all these different iPhone apps, but I can see. I read this book, Scrum Methodology. We got whiteboards all over the office, but I can see what everybody's progress is without having to bother them. And if I do need to bother them, I can bother them. And that helps a tremendous amount for not only my sanity, because I'm not a micromanager in this business. I was a micromanager in the oil field. I'm not a micromanager in this business. I want to see what people are capable of. But what you just said about how much you pay for talent, Braxton bonuses out at 40 grand a month. Braxton's 19 years old. You know what I mean?
Dude, you just help change that kid's life, and in turn, he will give you everything he can. You should feel great about that.
And Braxton, Braxton owns 18 units right now that he's got a pile of equity in, that if he wanted to exit that would probably pay him around $700,000-800,000. You know what I mean? And he bought those wholesale from us. He bought them off our board and paid us assignments for them.
Dude, that's incredible. When we first started this business early on, we were trying to keep the lights on and figure out how to make every nickel. And I'm starting to find that the more we spend time trying to make people happier, give them more what they want in life, help pay them as much as we can, this business is continuing to grow exponentially. In the last year, I started to focus less on the real estate and more on the people. And I realized we're a real estate business, but we're really a people business, and we trade in real estate. And when I started to look at it that way, the business grew.
Dude, hiring is the game changer of any of it. For me, it's like I get so far out in front of my skis without, it's like you look up and it's like, all right, we got $4.5 million worth of debt on this one side of the board. We used to not even have $2 million worth of capital that we could get a hold of. Now we got 4.5 just on one side of the board, and then we've got everything else parked in rental properties. I'm like, we've got a lot of stuff going on. But just like you, I'm like, this is a hot real estate market. I'm trying to trade as much as I can until it won't trade anymore. And then when it won't trade, I'm going to rent it out and see where it lands. You know what I mean? But like we buy so many deals at 30 to 50 cents on the dollar. I honestly don't worry necessarily about the market. I'm not overly concerned with it. And then the rental aspect of it. Any advice you want to give anybody? Anything you want to say? Any events coming up that you want people to come to? What do you got? What do you got to offer?
I would like to tell people I'm probably the most anti-education type person that there is, but folks really want to know about the title curative work. So I did a class last month and I videoed it, and I do have that curriculum online now for basically about the cost of 1 hour of lawyer time. It's $400. We go over stuff from most of the common title defects you can think of. We talk about specific performance lawsuits. We talk about memorandums of contract. We talk about landlocked land. I mean, I got several attorneys that did the class with me. It is a freaking 7 hours packed full of everything it could possibly give in that time. So I feel good about offering that. It's really hard to deliver. Yeah, I do have a link. I'll get it for you. I can share it with you as soon as this is over.
Okay,
but
cool.
I love that because I can make a decent amount of money on it, and I'm able to deliver this information that everyone's dying to get in a very large format. And man, it's cool. So anybody who likes hearing about these deals that they bought for $1 million and sold for $2 million, bought for $50,000 and sold for $150,000, it's because I solve problems, and all of the skills in there are the basics of what I learned to solve, how to get these deals. It's fixing a problem for somebody, getting shit cheap.
This link will be in the comments, in the description on the YouTube channel is where I'll put it. Because we're in about, 10 different Facebook groups right now. If you're in the Facebook groups, go to the YouTube channel, subscribe. Whenever he sends a link to me, I will update it in the description on the YouTube channel. Anything else, Logan? I know we've been going for an hour and 8 minutes. I could go Rogan this thing. I could be here all day. What kind of advice you give the people? If you want to keep going, we'll keep going. But if you want to wrap it up, we can wrap it up. It doesn't really matter to me. What would you say to people that are just getting started or might be on their journey or might be a little bit lost or confused? What advice do you have for them?
Man, in closing, I would probably say, folks, if you really work hard and you really care and you really start to search for the answers and you give everything you got, you're going to get what you focus on. So if you're focusing on building a big business that makes money, that's what you're going to get. If you're waking up every day and going towards that goal, your path's going to look different than mine and Corey's and everybody else's out there because of so many factors. But if you get up and you head towards that finish line, you're going to be surprised how quick you get there. and that perseverance and that continuing to not give up and continuing to think deeper and ask questions and figure things out. That's what gets you there, I think.
Dude, perseverance is the biggest part of anything. I mean,
Yeah.
you worked on the fracking side of oil field, correct? You were out.
I was on construction. So as soon as those guys were done, they put that Christmas tree on, I'd come in and hook up the pipeline.
Yeah, that dude, you learned so much out there doing that. Like so much about like
that was way better than college. Way better.
Like so much. I drive by and I look at it and I think and last night a man that's got like $1 million with us told us, he went to the baseball game with us, and he told us, he said, we were making ice cream sundaes. They apparently you're in the suite, you can just ask them, they'll bring you ice cream. You can just, all the toppings, everything. So we're just making ice cream sundaes. And he said, I'm really proud of what you boys have done. He worked in the cattle business his whole life, and he's like, it's way bigger than digging a post hole or out repairing fence. He goes, my only hope for y'all is that y'all get to do this forever. That way you can just be out of shape, eating ice cream whenever you want. I was like, he's such a savage. You know what I mean? He's so like nice and complimenting me. He's like, you're fat and eating ice cream. I'm like, we weren't fat and eating ice cream. Like we were running around with the Cool Whip, putting it in people's mouth. It was a good time. But anyways, Logan, it's always great. You're one of the smartest humans I know.
Thanks so much, dude. That means a lot to hear. I appreciate it because I got a lot of respect for you and what's ticking up there. So thank you.
Dude, I love it. Like I love the size of your business. I love how you got there. I love that we're debt adverse. You know what I mean? Debt smart. That a lot of that rubbed off on me where, you were a lot of the early lessons that you passed on to me, we implemented in our business instantly. It's been great. Guys, if you're not following Logan on Facebook, where can people find you? Facebook, Instagram, the TikTok?
Facebook. Yeah, man, I'm mostly on Facebook. Logan Fullmer, pop it into Facebook. It'll come up. I have an Instagram page. I'm start putting more stuff out there. It's The Real Estate Junkie.
Okay.
So you can start checking that. Things will start happening this month over there.
And to be fair, we didn't get into Logan's story, and that's my fault because I know Logan's story, but Logan's got an incredible story. Y'all should really look into this guy, especially if you're battling addiction or anything like that. I mean, I don't know how much of that you've shared publicly, but Logan has an incredible story. Y'all should really go look and see the other podcasts that he's done where maybe he's dived into that. When I get around Logan, I just want to talk real estate.
If you look at the Instagram handle, The Real Estate Junkie, it's all right there.
It's all right there. Well, that's why I brought it up. When I heard it, I was like, I guess, look, what you used to not like public speaking. I remember that.
I mean? Figure that out now.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm just ecstatic about where you're at now and the people that you're helping, and you're definitely changing lives. I can't wait. I'm going to be in San Antonio on June 3rd. We're going to be doing a cold calling training down there.
Oh, dude!
I'm going to swing through. Yeah, I'm going to swing. I'm going to hit you up. Believe me, I'm going to be in your DMs several days ahead because I know you got a busy schedule. And we'll link up, eat dinner, eat lunch. I want to, drive by that new office space and look at it.
Oh yeah, I'll come. I'll show you. Yeah.
Awesome. So look forward to it.
I'm going to put this in my calendar right now so that I don't miss you here.
Okay. I put it in there. June 3rd, I'll be there all day. I'll be there the night before. I'm thinking about doing a little free networking event at like Top Golf or something. We haven't dove into that yet where we're going to do that, but we're definitely going to be there the night before. So we'll put together a little happy hour or something like that.
Let me know, man. If you do something on Facebook, about it, let me know. I'll promote it and I'll show up, man. It'll be fun. I'd love to see you again.
All right, man. Later.